Hello everyone, this is day 41. I'm Tom Lynn's Nyback. This is 365 Days to Racial Change. Welcome to day 41 of our program. We're just moving right along. That's an incredible accomplishment for me and for all of you who have been following along. Get right to it. We're going to get into pretty interesting subject. It's relevant in a lot of ways to what is happening in America today. So we'll get right to it. Well, first, we are essentially informed by a man named Dr. Claude Anderson. I'm going to do a piece on him very soon, his little biographical dealie. But I've read 3 of his great works. I watch a lot of his videos. He still tours the country talking about race in America, being black, white entitlement, white privilege, issues of slavery. Here at this show, 2 of my ideas is, does the slave mind and the white entitlement mind prevail from the times of slavery? Do those pressures still exist here in America? And also, are blacks playing the economic game properly in America? Those are some of the underlying motivations and issues that I come to the table with when we talk about race. 3 books that inform me, that I reference heavily through this program, through this year, as a Black History reader. 101 Questions You Never Thought to Ask. That's the first book I read, and besides his videos and his truth and the spirit, I've just been on fire ever since. I encourage you to get these books, hopefully maybe later in the year. I want things to come around for me financially. I can have a contest or distribution. Black Labor, White Wealth, Search for Power and Economic Justice. If you have these texts, we are going to be referencing this book a little bit later in the program, after the introductions and things like that. And also maybe his foundational groundwork is Powernomics, National Plan to Empower Black America. If you're new to the program, you need to know that that book in particular has his national plan, but it spelled out that he wanted to have it done kind of moving by 2005. Very ambitious, admirable, but this is about 13, 14 years later. Blacks are still having the issue, and as you know, we're talking about blackface and politics, a lot of racism coming up to the fore again, and I think in a good way, a way that's going to bring some positive attention and change. We want to get to that in the program just in a few minutes. Also, we'll take a look at some, we're going through this book. We've already had a few chapters already. We just call it Story Time. It's Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe. And we look at it as a reference to see how that book influenced America. And it does. Back in the mid-1800s, when the compilation came out, it was very influential in theater, politics, and now even today it has come, and issues of it have resurfaced again regarding blackface. So today is very relevant and appropriate to what's going on right now in America. You look behind me, you got hashtag us too, hashtag USTOO, and right there you'll find Black community talking about Black issues. There's blackenough.com, another website. It's kind of like a Black Facebook. And I hate to use black in the adjectival position like that, because it makes it sound like another kind of human or person, and I'm wrestling with how to articulate my trepidations, my feelings about some of that stuff. So bear with me, but there's some issues about saying the Black Facebook, right? Black music, that is the Black neighborhood. I don't like those kind of, I'm starting to dislike those kind of designations. So let's get right to it. Today, I want to talk about Jim Crow, semi-slavery, black codes. Maybe not the specifics, but some of the overarching things. You know, these segments are only 30-minute monologues, and you never get it all in. I'll just give some foundation, brief definitions, and just kind of freeform my ideas, my experience. I've been on the planet. I've lived in this country many decades now, and I think I have an understanding and handle on racism, whether it's been applied to me unconsciously, whether I've exercised it in my life. Um, Hence, Dr. Anderson's work resonates with me very powerfully when I open my eyes and I'm honest about my position, the community at large, and things like that. So Jim Crow, semi-slavery, black codes. If you look in Black Labor, White Wealth by Dr. Anderson, page 11 has a few definitions, some resources I'm going to reference here. First, I want to also say, you know, blackface, the resurgence of the blackface issue may be a blessing to black people in America because if you've seen a couple of these, I'm trying to get into our minds collectively that our black issues, it's not a people of color issue. It's not, our black issues are not women's issues. It's not the gay issues. Um, it's not immigration, the problem with immigration. Black issues are issues stemming from slavery in America, how the pressure applied to black people, how the color of our skin was the sole determining factor of how a whole group of people were treated in America. You know, these other groups came along later, have not lived here as long enough, and all these things. And so Dr. Anderson rightly goes through a lot of effort to bring some separation, some appropriate segregation. You know, don't lump blacks in with the immigrant community. Don't lump blacks in with people of color community. Because those communities, you know, when they are exposed and reach out and approach the system, they're accommodated, not black people. Try to get that under your belt. This program doesn't exist. Dr. Anderson's work doesn't exist on the idea that us black folks are just an oppressed group like all the others. We're not. We're black people, and our issues persist and continue because we're black, and we don't get access to wealth and resources of this nation. We're dead last economically, incomes, socially, in general. I know we got Steve Harvey's, we got Shaquille O'Neal's, um, we got LeBron James's, and Michael Jordan's, and the Venus sisters, and things like that. I'm sorry, the tennis sisters. Forgive me, sisters, for forgetting your last name. But you know, Serena and Venus. So, yes, we got our little highlights. People that can handle the ball, athletics, and things like that. Even our politicians. We got a president. Okay, all these spikes in success of people with black skin. But in general, the black community is suffering. You know what I mean, this thing, Economically is fragile, socially is so fragile, and when push comes to shove, if it comes down to throwing people under the bus, black people will be first, not immigrants, gays, women, things like that. Black people will go first. Then you see that Saw, what was it, the Saw, it was it was like the third one, I think. And they were, if you've seen the Saw series, I like that series actually, but it's a good idea. But it's for the insurance company and priorities and things like that. And you see, like when push comes to shove, and a white man has the button right on this, and these people are on a carousel. One black man. I mean, I laugh because it's satirical, because the black man is doomed in this highly stressful situation. I think he was the first or second one. I think the second one that the creators gave some grace, right? It wouldn't have been surprising for him to be the first one. Even in movies, it was kind of comical in the 80s. Me and my friends, when we'd watch a movie, uh, when the black man was killed off first, like it was a satirical, understood thing. At the end of the movies, black people, the black man wasn't alive. Thank God for Denzel Washington and Wesley Snipes. They lived at the end of these movies. Okay, all right, back to Jim Crow. But blackface is so it's good because I saw one of these news programs today, and a black woman was really, I could sense her frustration as she's trying to tell the national audience and the panel she was sitting on, this is a black issue, not people of color. Plenty of people of color. Everybody's a certain color. Red, browns, and yellows, all colors. Only black people get this. So blackface coming back to the fore is actually a good thing. And I think Dr. Anderson's a visionary with his work that he presented us with. Okay. To get to it, where our time done got me, done got me talking again. So page 11 of Black Labor, White Wealth. A slave's life is committed to producing wealth and comfort for white masters. This has not changed. We've not moved far from this in America. See, Jim Crow and his semi-slavery black codes, these attacks, these laws, these issues, these codes of conduct were to keep blacks, you're poor enough to be ineffective, but you get enough resources to come back. It's the idea today of saying living paycheck to paycheck. Well, they kept the blacks, hobbled in a sense, kept the blacks from owning land out west. Right? You don't see, you look at the black and white Western movies as populated by white people. I never thought of it until today. Until you read Dr. Anderson's work, it's like, well, black people weren't allowed to, they were prevented from owning land. They were prevented from participating in the gold rush, silver rush, and all the other resources out west. So, I mean, it's very sadistic. You kept the economics and you kept policies in place to just make sure you don't allow the black folks to participate, but you don't want them to go off on their own like they would in Tulsa or Rosewood, or building their own communities and stuff. They quickly sack those places. So, this slave's life being committed to prospering whiteness still goes on today. We find, now that whites are starting to find themselves, the lower echelons, economic echelons of whiteness, finding themselves caught in the machine and being taken advantage of. Now you got a big upheaval and you want change and reform and things like that, just like the drug crisis. Crack cocaine and cocaine came in to the streets, and blacks are killing off blacks, hooked and losing uh, their minds and all that. You didn't see the great outcry that you see with the opioid epidemic because it's a little bit more expensive, maybe, I don't know. But it's touched the white society more. So there's campaigns and commercials and all this stuff. Same with methamphetamine and things like that. So, it's okay when the blacks are marginalized, oppressed, going through some difficulty. That's and that those blacks going through that difficulty serves the higher echelons of whiteness economically. It's our black burden is white wealth. It's support. Hence we're coming out of this book, Black Labor, White Wealth. It's an equation. It's a balanced equation that exists. You know, Black labor translates into white wealth. So without black labor, there's no white wealth. Hence, you're going to have laws. You're going to have codes, discriminations, and things like that in America, land of the free, home of the brave. White people. Always remember that. So, to carry this argument a little further, is Jim Crow then, or practices, it's ordinances and social sanctions that prohibited blacks from sharing fully in an affluent American society. Um, I, I think I've covered that pretty well right there. So, black people are racially hobbled. We are marginalized is a real soft word, actually, because, I take public transportation a lot. Um, when I'm walking in crowds in public, I'm fairly, above average size black man. Right? So when I'm out and about, you can I'm looked at fear and certain women of races. Uh, you could tell they talked about the myth of the black men being rapists and things like that, and how these myths are just embedded in the culture. How, if you remember a few episodes back, I read, I think it was in Powernomics, how some immigrants are told to avoid blacks, some Asian immigrants in particular, avoid blacks, keep away. It's like we'll get on them, or they'll be fouled by association. Yet they'll readily come into our neighborhoods and establish a store and suck out resources. But us blacks need to work on that. That's another issue. But this Jim Crow, semi-slavery, black codes are this restriction on black achievement, other than that which is acceptable to whites, other than what makes blacks acceptable in the eyes of whites. Whatever makes blacks um, non-threatening. I told you that there's these buses um, have this picture on the side of the bus, and it's a black man with hands gently folded and is leaning to the side, and he's standing behind his Asian man, and it's so disgusting. It's like we were whipped, murdered, burned, hung, prevented from. It's like this presupposition of evil from black people, and it's like we're always apologizing for that when we've never done anything uh, to warrant such behavior beyond where we got to come out from uh, in our experience with slavery. You know, every race, every people have their uh, serious issues and their neighborhoods and things like that. You know, so yeah, if you take an individual, immerse them in crime, negativity, if that's all they know, well, you get what you plant. You know, you plant an apple seed, you get an apple tree. You know, you plant this person in a challenging life and neighborhood, and you're going to be a little while dusting them off and getting them cleaned up. You know, just like a diamond. Diamonds come out of the heart of the earth. Pressure, time, and the dirt. You know, yet they just need a little polishing. You may have to cut off this and shape that and whatever. But it's one of the most valuable materials on the planet. You see, if that type of time, patience, and resources are taken, I'm a product of that. So decades of cleaning off, of me falling back, getting cleaned up again, falling back. So yeah, there's issues, but it doesn't translate into this gross stereotype that exists in American society towards Black Americans. That's unacceptable. You know, and further, a lot of the stereotypes, a lot of the fears and things like that is actually white behavior from slavery. White men had liberties with the black female slaves. It wasn't black men all so hungry for white flesh. It was white men doing all this, having all this sexuality with black women, having these mulatto quadroon people, you know. And no, the black woman is not some promiscuous sexual being in the world. The black female slave had no choice but to do what the white master said. Let's be clear about these sexual stereotypes in society. Statistically, black men don't rape black women. Interracial sexual assault is a rarity. That's not the rule, you know. So I get very uptight about that. I've done my own research about that, so I know what I'm talking about on that case and cause. Frederick Douglass saw way back on his day. Angela Davis, up to the present day, you know, saw the same thing in her time. You know, I've experienced it on public transportation. These apprehensions and fears with no foundation. Well, you know, prejudice, ignorance has no foundation. There's no rhyme or reason to it. So I don't expect much. And for the ignorant mind, the unintelligent mind, you can kind of expect that. So I don't get too upset. I used to get jammed up about, not anymore. So this marginalization for blacks, people of color, race, sexuality, economics, all this stuff, it still persists. You know, what's it going to look like, right? What would get me to say, you know what? Okay, black folks, we've now arrived at um, our place, and we're moving about in America and having a sense of the same freedoms, entitlements, and privileges as white folks out and other people. What would do that is the appearance of freedoms and entitlements and privileges of white people and other races. And what I mean is, I'd see more economic. Um, it would be an economic realization. You know, there'd be more bigger black sustained businesses. There'd be uh, black competition in Walmart, black products, you know, not from way over in China, you know, not some Chinese outlet store at the Walmart and the Kmart and all the marts. It wouldn't be some Asian conglomerate uh, outlet. It'd be uh, it would be truly a fair market. You know, black people would there'd be a black um, rubber company, rubber manufacturing distribution, um, black hospitals that white people went to, black supermarket chain that white people and other races frequented. Um, you know, well, blacks are so part of the problem also is that blacks are, how can I say it? Blacks are like a black white person. We dress the same, use the same products, make the same food, like the same foods, drive the same vehicles. You know, it's not as though it's another culture, so to speak. It's not African in no way. Africa's bred out of Black America. That's that's a um, uh, deliberate attack, indoctrination away from Africa. Africa doesn't exist in Black America's culture or mind. Our only association is the color of our skin. That's not Black. Africans are a whole different. Um, that's a whole different culture, different values, totally. Um, but Black Americans, um, it's inundated. It's defined by a lot of whiteness. The only separation is the color of our skin. The color of our skin brought on these codes and stuff like that. You know, man, if the whole world had been white, you know, what would have been the how would they engaged in slavery? You know, because we're easy to persuade. You can't just put white pigment over us, whiteface, and call it um, call it a difference or try to blend in. You know, that doesn't work. Um, the color of our skin it's all of us, from the top of our head to the soles of our feet. It's black. So that's an interesting. You can't escape it. You know, so that was the easy target for those powerful white folks that took that opportunity way back in the 1500s and all this stuff. You know, just a labor force, but based on the color of their skin, then it was a no-brainer, don't even have to think about it. Blackness. So that's Jim Crow, semi-slavery, black codes. We'll probably get into some specifics of that, but it's some things are heating up. I think this is going to be part of this upcoming election, racism, things like that, and I think we're going to be seeing some corrections from the 60s civil rights and social integration policies, and we're going to get some updates. We're long overdue. We've given it its due course. We can now glean and tweak and all that and update this whole thing and make it exclusive for blacks. That's going to be a big step for black people in America, big time. Thanks for spending time with me. That's day 41 out of the way. I'm Tomlinson Iback. That's 365 days towards racial change. We'll see you again.